good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all of our listeners in podcast land. This is Joe coming to you from the She Compass Show. I am pointing north today with my co-captain Helen, and we are so glad to have you with us today. So today we want to talk a little bit about policing women's anger and what it means for women to express their anger and frustration, how it's viewed in this larger society, and whether it's taken as seriously as it should be. So let me introduce you, or let me share with you, a quick tape that ran in The Atlantic with a woman who has some commentary on the effect of women's anger.
Women's anger is often regarded as marginalizing, funny, silly, hysterical, chaotic, out of control, and deeply ugly. Rosa Parks didn't simply refuse to give up her seat because she was tired and exhausted and stoic, which is always the story we've been sold. Rosa Parks was a furious anti-racism and anti-sexism activist for her entire life. Not only was her action that day planned, it was born of a deep anger at the inequities in the United States. We're never told that part of the history, in part because we're always encouraged to look away from women's anger. Angry women, from the suffragists, the abolitionists, the women who in many ways catalyzed the American labor movement, temperance activists, civil rights activists, black power activists, gay rights activists. So many of these original, explosive figures have been women who were angry at injustice and expressed it in ways that were powerful and persuasive to others, that catalyzed movements. Social movements in this country have often been kickstarted by angry women.
So Helen, I know you're going to have some feedback on this. You've heard the tape. You've heard the analysis of how women's anger is viewed, particularly in the political arena. What's your take on this?
Well, here's my take on it. The woman that was just speaking could be considered as being angry in just what she's trying to convey, because women tend to have a lot of emotion when they speak because they're passionate about what they're talking about and they're trying to make a point. Now, this is what I think. Anytime a woman is trying to make a point, like the lady says, they're being viewed as it's funny, or in my case, you're the angry black woman or something like that. Mm-hmm. So how do we get our point across without having emotion or passion for what we're talking about? Because when a man has passion for what he's talking about in emotion, it's looked at as power. When a woman does it, it's looked at as anger, because we are supposed to be the quieter, submissive people in society. And now that today's woman has this big, loud voice, we're being told that we're angry. And that's not the truth. She's speaking from a politics level on things. She's speaking from way back when Rosa Parks didn't want to give up her seat, and letting people know that the background noise of that wasn't being told is that she was an activist and it was planned. So a lot of those things slip beneath the cracks, because back then that was just such a huge move for civil rights that the backstory does not get told. And the backstory is the most important story, right? Because it tells the character of the person committing the act of trying to help people and why. So that's important, because when we tell the stories of Einstein.
Okay, that's a good one.
I did know that Einstein was dyslexic, because they took the time with him to go through everything he stood for in the background to bring to the forefront everything he was. Absolutely. He was brilliant. But when we talk about women, we just say, she did this.
Because she was tired.
Because she was tired right. And she got angry,
right.
And no one would stand up, and she was the only one who would stand up. So her anger came out, and then it all came out. What about everything that woman stood for from the forefront?
That is a really good point. And you're right on on the head of that, because when I think about the Einstein story, you're right, because you and I make it a point to celebrate other dyslexics
Oh, yes.
in the community, because obviously that's something that's very close to us.
Right.
So whenever we find that, we get excited and we want to talk about it. But you're absolutely right. We know everything about Einstein, from his theory of relativity to, how he came to be, what his background is. But when we start talking about women, the other person I'm thinking about contemporarily is Christine Blasey Ford. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. This was the woman that testified against Brett Kavanaugh in the Supreme Court. You remember we did a thing on that, and everybody was kind of watching that. And he, instead of sort of analyzing where she came from, what her story was, we had to wrestle whether or not to believe her, whether or not she was telling the truth. Was she angry? And then it's funny if you juxtapose that against Brett Kavanaugh himself. Now, you remember that skit from Saturday Night Live?
He brought out the anger.
Oh, he was crazy.
He was hysterically angry, and it just was like, he's just an angry man that he got attacked. Boys will be boys,
right?
Well, what will girls be?
That's exactly
girls?
Right.
I mean, where's our girls will be girls when we do something inappropriate? No one says girls will be girls. You get your hand hit and told, don't do that again, that's not ladylike. So see, there's a double standard. This is something that comes up in our upbringing, our society, and it tells us to stand in the background. And if you make some noise, you're going to be conveyed as angry. Just keep your mouth shut, listen for your name, speak when spoken to, and don't say nothing else.
Or you're not going to be believed, or it's going to be considered funny, or someone's going to crack a joke. Oh, look at her.
Yeah. And then you got the other word she didn't mention, is the BI.
That's it.
So, you don't ever want to be that.
Correct.
So it's so many double standards in our society. And this is just like racism. It's practiced. And it's something that people don't want to let go of. It sticks around, and it's around because there are still people. There's still enough people that believes that a woman should not have a voice.
We'll be right back. We're excited to announce Helen's latest speaking engagement. Helen will join the ladies of Believe, Inspire, Grow in Chatham Township, New Jersey on Friday, August 9th, 2019 at 10 a.m. for an inspiring talk on how she overcame the challenges of severe dyslexia and dysgraphia, poverty, teenage pregnancy, and the loss of her hair as a child to become a successful business owner and author of the 3-time award-winning book, Finding Our She Compass, 15 Life Lessons for Women Voyaging Toward Restoration, Reconstruction, and Renewal. Helen has been empowering women through word and action for years and is the recipient of multiple awards for her dedication to improving the lives of women everywhere. Our podcast, The She Compass Show, is based on that book premise of using life lessons on the path to self-discovery. Please join us for a great day of conversation, fellowship, and encouragement. For more details on the event and to learn how to become a member of Believe, Inspire, Grow, also known as BIG, contact Kathy Maloney at cmaloney1@verizon.net. That's CMALONEY, the number 1@verizon.net. You can also visit the website at BelieveInspireGrow.com. And we'll also have links to the contact information and website for Believe, Inspire, Grow in our show notes for this episode. We look forward to seeing you there. Join Helen on the Dyslexia Quest, a podcast featuring interviews with the leading experts in the field of intelligence, learning, flourishing, and neurodiversity, as well as profiling uber-successful dyslexics to share their story and wisdom. Helen's show opened Dyslexia Quest's new season, and she's looking forward to talking to you about her own battle with dyslexia. On Helen's appearance, the host writes, quote, "Helen Owens blew me away. She is one of the most powerful guests I've ever had. She holds presence, confidence, and an inner sense of radiance. If you are looking for an inspiring story that will have you connected to your innate power, your capacity to create, that will have you inspired about human potential, this is your episode. I have a feeling this is going to be one of our all-time listener favorites," end quote. You don't want to miss this show, and you can help support this podcast that shines a light on neurodiversity. We'll have a link to this show ready for you in the show notes. Love the She Compass Show? Then help us become a winner at the 14th Annual People's Choice Podcast Awards. Your nomination can help us keep doing what we love, encouraging women to rise to their highest potential and celebrating the bonds of sisterhood. Registration for the People's Choice Podcast Awards begins July 1st, 2019 at www.podcastawards.com. Simply register, then submit your nomination for the She Compass Show. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, how many of us can remember being told girls don't play with boys' toys, or this is a girl's toy, you don't play with this, or, this is a boys' game, we don't allow girls.
Oh, yeah, I remember G.I. Joe.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to play with G.I. Joe more than I wanted to play with Barbie. But, I was told that's your brother's toys. You don't play with your brother's toys. And so, kind of vice versa, because if you catch a boy playing with a doll, it's like, that's a no-no.
And that's a really good point you just brought up, because we chastise men in this society too for expressing their emotions.
For their femininity.
Absolutely.
When I mean that, I mean their softer side.
That's
if
right.
If a boy wants to pick up a Barbie, that doesn't mean that the world is going to fall apart because he wants to play with a Barbie. So when we're not taught to look at the side of each person, when we are a child, when we're told don't play with that boy toy or don't play with that girl toy, and it's like, okay, so what am I supposed to do with that? Okay, when you're told that, then your identity crisis kicks in. I remember my brothers having temper tantrums when I would get into a fight with one of them or something, and it was allowed for them to just go in. But if I went in, it was like, you're not, that's not ladylike, don't do that. So, you're told that you cannot be angry and be a girl. When you grow up with that kind of stuff, it sticks with people, because we all know the things you learn as a child are the things you take into your life. And I don't care what that is that you are taught. It takes, what do they say? You can't teach an old dog new tricks, all those old things. And when people have something in them, you can't change it. And they have to change that. So when people start seeing a different outcome or a different way of doing things, they still have to learn that that's appropriate. So when women are just having a voice, no, there's no anger involved, just being powerful. It is too much, because that is not what a girl is supposed to be.
And anytime you assign a behavior to someone, you are putting them in a box and telling them what they need to be. This brings me to a very interesting article that I found in Vox. But this is a story about a new report that shows how racism and bias deny Black girls their childhoods. So let me just share this, because this is along the lines of what you're saying. Women in general are viewed as anger being inappropriate behavior. But imagine being a child and having someone label you as angry simply by the way that you look.
Right. And isn't that, now, let me tell you, we have the whole women's movement now, a bigger movement after the Me Too came out. And people were coming out to tell their stories that they've had all these hidden things that they've held on to for years. Now, there's a lot of anger in that. But here's the thing. I think the thing that keeps us, we're fighting for all women's rights, not just Black women, not white women, not Asians, not Latinas. We're fighting for all women's rights. And that gives us this platform to speak on, but it also says that there are still so many segregations, even in women's groups, where we're all women. And we need to understand that if one of us went through something and the other one went through something, but we went through it in different ways, we need to learn how to come together and identify those ways as women. How can we all say that we're speaking on women's platforms to women? We have to speak to all women. We can't leave someone out because they're Black, or someone out because they're Asian or Latina. We are supposed to be loving on, supporting on all women.
And that same sort of grouping the thing that just came to mind when you said that was I was also thinking about our transgender sisters, our sisters who identify as gender non-binary,
Right.
our sisters who basically are across the rainbow, colorful people, and want to be and don't want to be put in a box, don't want to be told that when they speak up they sound a certain way, or don't want to be told that that they're not allowed to discuss a certain agenda because it's not ladylike.
And the way we all learn as a people period, is by getting on platforms, speaking our piece, and understanding that this is what we were taught. We were taught to defend this way, no matter who you are, where you come from, or your economic background, or whatever you have or don't have. We all have to come together and understand that every woman that speaks on a platform, when she speaks on that platform, she's speaking from a place of her personal self, of what she grew up in, where she came from. And you are listening because you need to learn something and identify something different, that every woman has a different struggle. Every woman has a different story. Every woman, and hey, there are angry black women. There are angry white women. People are angry because they have
a right to be.
Yeah, because they are not being heard in the way that they need to be heard. How would you like to go outside and start speaking on something and people are laughing at you? That's bullying. Just because you don't understand somebody doesn't mean that they're not right about what they're trying to convey to you. Try to open up your mind and open up your heart and know that we all come from different places and we all come from different circumstances, and we all should have the right to be heard without the anger part put in there.
And I'm going to go back to this article. Now, I want to preface this by saying that this was a study that was done on African American women, but I want to say that sort of what you're saying, Helen, in terms of blanketing people and making assumptions about them, this whole thing applies. And I think it'll get us to kind of all ask ourselves an important question about what we're assigning to people that would make us think that when they express themselves, there's something funny about it, or there's something confrontational about it. Right. So let me just read just a couple of quick quotes here. Black girls say they are often given less support than their peers, and that authority figures often react to them more harshly. In their first report on this issue in 2017, the Georgetown law researchers found that black girls as young as 5 years old are already seen as less innocent and needing less support than white girls of the same age. This presumption led teachers and other authority figures to treat black girls as older than they actually were, and more harshly than white female students, with the disparity being particularly wide for 10 to 14-year-olds. For the new study, researchers held several focus groups with black women and girls, which were broken up by age. Girls as young as 12 and women as old as 60 participated. They asked them to respond to many of the findings of the 2017 Georgetown Law Report, and particularly asked them if the findings about adultification bias aligned with their own life experiences, and their overwhelming response was yes.
Why, yes. This is where we get into the economics and the financial status of people. When I grew up in the ghetto, I guess that's almost like they look at you like you can take rough talk better than your white counterparts, because those virginal ears never heard speech like this. And so you are growing up in this background. So when we say something harsh to you, it shouldn't hurt. It should hurt a lot less. But let me tell you, it hurts a lot more. Just because you're growing up in that environment doesn't make you more susceptible or more powerful in hearing bad things from people, or people saying things like you may hear curse words that you don't want to hear. You don't gather a strength to curse words when you're 5 or 6. It hurts. And so when you go into a different environment where people think that that's harsh speak, you can speak the harsh speak because I can hear in my ear, you're a dummy, or you just not applying yourself, you're really stupid. That kind of thing hurts like I can't tell you how much that hurts. And so when you're going into this different environment, what you want to hear from people is the thing that you imagine that you're getting out of. you don't want more of that. You're looking for someone to say, this poor child has it bad enough. Let's give her a break here, because if she's grown up in that environment, I know what she's hearing or seeing. So when you bust this child all the way across town where people are living better, they have better life circumstances, they have families, they have more money, they have more access to better things, what you want to hear from those people is that we care. We care. We care, so keep hope alive, because maybe one day you'll get here.
And you know what? You're bringing up a really, really good point, because this is the point that I was making a moment ago, that when we attach color, or when we attach any kind of label to somebody,
what do you call that? Environment where you live,
right? And we make assumptions on them based on those labels, then it affects our reaction. I'm going to tell you one quick story. Now, I don't know if you saw this, but I caught this in passing about the lesbian couple. I believe they were on a bus just recently, just minding their own business, and they were assaulted by bigots, basically. But this was the interesting thing about it. The bigots basically made assumptions about their behavior. They told them, you need to kiss each other because that's what lesbian women do. And so basically saying, if you don't do this, we're going to attack you. And sure enough, they were attacked. I think they had a phone and a wallet stolen. And so, and even in their reaction, what I found interesting in terms of going back to our topic of anger, even in their reaction, they had to sort of remain calm and handle it, because
this is what labels do. You could be a white lesbian couple, and whites will come in and treat you by your label. Now your skin is white, but you're lesbian first. And this is what I'm talking about. Point. When you take a person, I'm a black woman, but I'm black first, more than anything, more than smart, more than educated or uneducated. The assumption is that I'm a black woman, so I'm not good enough to be treated on the platform with anybody else.
And therefore, when you say something of value, it's automatically angry.
Right. It's automatically angry, because it's the view that people have of you. Listen, when people don't have to step outside of their glory, I will say it like that, to step into your madness, looking at you is always the view through those glasses, because what you're doing is you're at the top saying, I never have to deal with this, so why do I have to? If I run into this, then I'll deal with this, but I don't have to go to this to deal with this. But when you don't deal with lesbians, when you don't deal with blacks, you don't deal with Latinos, the world around you becomes a dangerous place.
That is the point. And that's exactly the point that I was making about this couple on the bus. These women took a photo of their own being bathed in their own blood after being attacked, and still had to make sure that they reacted appropriately, because they didn't want people to add additional labels. Oh, the angry lesbian women.
Right.
You know, they wanted to be valued for the experience that they went through, and they still had to think about that.
So that shows you, but this is what the view you have to see. The titles, they are all titles. They have nothing to do with the inner you, how you respond to people, how you respect people, how you treat people. And so until we stop looking at people through the glasses we want to view them through, because we feel like we never have to step down to that part of the world to either see it, be a part of it, or deal with it. When you don't deal with the masses, you cannot sit on the throne and think that it's not going to come for you, because you're living all around it. We all have differences, but we can't beat each other up for what we don't believe in. It should be a common reality that what makes everything what it is that we are all different.
And you can't devalue people. Because
now I could sound like an angry black woman right now, just telling my story.
That's
Someone
exactly
could say,
right.
She's angry because I'm expressive.
And you can't devalue people for sharing their expression. You can't devalue people for explaining something with a passion. And that's why we have to continue, just as the tape was saying, we've got to continue speaking up and sharing our voices and sharing our stories for the very reason that Helen just described. Not only is it our right to do that, but also because it's so important that people witness the world around them.
Why do we, as a people, not like the differences we see in people? None of us are perfect, and we're all trying to be better people. So why can't we all just come to the common reality that that's the way the world works?
And I think one of the things that is part of how we do that is exactly what you just said, is to not isolate ourselves from, in whatever environment we are, to not isolate ourselves from the world around us, wherever we come from, because it's the only way that we're going to be able to look at somebody and identify that person as us, regardless of what they look like, regardless of what their gender identity is, regardless of what their sexual identity is, regardless of where they come from, what their economic background is, regardless of how much money they have in the bank or where they live. When you surround yourself with people and continue to mix in the world at large, suddenly everybody becomes like you. And therefore you can extend the respect to them that's due, instead of looking at them and suggesting that any time that they have a voice, that there's a problem with them.
Well, and that you especially don't want to hear it, so you're going to hurt somebody.
Absolutely.
And there are too many people living on the streets now. They don't have a place to live. They're pushing a basket. What really makes the differences in us is being kind. The kindness is free. Love is free. But the grace of your heart to at least try to understand
and to respect people's rights,
respect other people's life and the rights that they have. Just like you have the right of freedom of speech, they do too.
Absolutely.
And they have that. And you have to give everyone a platform, and not a platform to call it anger when you hear a woman trying to express herself. So the next time you hear a woman trying to express herself, realize that she's just out there finding her own sheet compass too. She's trying to be the captain and the commander of her ship. She's not trying to come across as angry. But you have to remember one thing. A lot of people, men, women, children, a lot of people have a lot of anger when they don't feel like they are being understood.
This has been a passionate discussion for us, and I hope it has been the same for you. And I'm so glad that you are joining us for this episode, and hope that you will join us again. If you love the things that we're talking about, we encourage you to pick up a copy of the book that started it all, Finding Our She Compass, 15 Life Lessons for Women Voyaging Toward Restoration, Reconstruction, and Renewal. It is a 4-time literary award winner, and we're very proud of that. So if you love what we're doing here, you can have more life lessons in the book. It's a short read and an enjoyable one with some great stories and lots of life lessons. And we thank you again for joining us. We are so glad that you're here. And if you have comments or questions, you know where to find us on social media. You can also send us notes and comments through our website at shecompass.com. And we hope that you'll join us for another show very soon. Have a wonderful day.